In today's video, I'm going to show you how to edit in one of the most trending styles right now, Bymaximise style. This editing style became popular several months ago, and a lot of creators are adopting it for its clean visuals, cool typography and stylish look. We'll break down this style into pieces so that you will have a full grasp on this style and how to copy it. Today we'll be mostly editing, so we'll learn by doing, but I will also say a couple of words about music choice and fonts. And in the end we'll make a sound design rundown, so make sure to watch until the very end. Music choice. I'll be quick here. Here's the list of tracks Bymaximise uses in his videos. I shazammed about 30 or so latest videos, so you have a huge library of music to choose from. On top of that, here's what ChatGPT said when I asked him to find similarities between these tracks and give some recommendations on how to search for tracks in this style. You will find both the track list and ChatGPT answer in the description below. And now let's say a couple of words about fonts. To nail this style visually, we really need cool fonts. Again, fonts are fucking important. So please, don't use bad fonts like this one or this one unless it's really important for your client or it's their brand font. And now you may ask, how do I know a good font from a bad font? Well, you can ask me directly. Make sure to check out our paid community Edit Hub that we do together with Axopreneur and Megala Media channel owner Kevin. In this community, we teach you how to become a paid editor from zero, get better at finding high-paying clients and refine your editing skills. Inside Edit Hub, you will have access to detailed After Effects and Premiere Pro courses, as well as client acquisition courses. Also, we do weekly calls and one-on-one coaching, so make sure to click the link in the description. For main text or captions, you should use Helvetica Bold or some similar font. Here are some of them. In combination with Helvetica type font, just choose one or two more fonts. It can be some script type font, some scribbly font, or even some gothic font, like this. Be creative, but make sure it looks good. I've compiled a font pack for you and put it in the description below, so you can have fun with it. With all that out of the way, let's get to the tutorial itself.
When you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is. Live your life inside the world, try not to bash into the walls too much, try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money. That's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact.
So the very first thing we need to do is to find the speech or some motivational quote by some famous person. In this case, I found the Steve Jobs speech, and I just cut it super quickly so that, it has some J cuts. As you can see, there's a small overlap between some of his sentences, like here. And there are two things you need to do. So firstly, of course, we need to maximize retention because we're doing short form content. So this is why you need to do this. But also, you need to sometimes leave, some breathing room for your viewers. Especially after some powerful sentences, you need to do these kind of things. You don't want this video to be super rushed. You just need it to be super well paced and very well balanced. This is why we leave sometimes, these gaps. And also sometimes your, sentence, the beginning of the sentence will sound a bit choppy if it has like this. Let me show you this kind of sound wave in the beginning, so that's why you sometimes need to do this. So you press Shift Ctrl D and it creates this fade in and fade out in the beginning and the end of the sound wave. What it does, it basically controls the volume in the beginning of the sentence. And in this case, within 2 frames, it just goes from 0 to full volume. It makes the transition much smoother, So you don't have clicks in the beginning or anything like that. With that being said, let's just copy this, Ctrl C, and what we can do, we can just simply go to After Effects. After copying it, we should create a new composition here. Of course, 1080 by 1920 because it's a vertical video, frame rate 30, and press OK. And now, just press Ctrl V. If it doesn't work for the first time, sometimes it doesn't, just go highlight and copy it again, instantly switch to After Effects. Now you see it works. So we pasted our speech inside After Effects. So our very first scene looks something like this. You see that it has this slide-in Macintosh computer, slides into the frame. Also, Steve Jobs is composited really well on the screen. He's a bit bent and he has these scan lines, so it looks realistic. And also there's a bit of green text, so let's recreate that. So we need this Macintosh asset firstly, and what we need to do, we need to make it a bit smaller like this. Now what we need to do is we need to enable full quality, and we need to mask out this screen shape. So mask it out carefully like this. So when you have a corner, you just press and drag until the shape looks like this. Then you want to go somewhere until the center, more or less, then until here, then again make the curve like this. If you messed up, just press Ctrl Z. I think it needs to look something like this. And always leave this guide so that the direction is relative to the path you want to cut later. Let's just finalize this mask. It's important that you don't worry too much about, the result of this, because it won't be visible for too long on screen. It will only be like 2-3 seconds. So don't worry about the precision too much. Now, as we've masked it out, what we need to do is we need to go here to mask, or alternatively we can just highlight this layer and press M. And we see the mask settings here. So here we need to change add to subtract, or alternatively we can just press inverted. In this case it will do the same function, So let's see how it was in the original. So his eye level was more or less below this line. So we'll move Steve Jobs up, and we'll highlight all the video layers, so that we can move it all at once. And I also think that we need to make him a bit smaller. So we see his shoulders like this, maybe a bit bigger like this. All right, great. What we need to do next is we need to create a background, because we don't want, don't want it to look like this, right? So we need a white solid. Just create a white solid and put it behind everything else like this. And now what we need to do is we need to make this layer 3D and make this layer 3D as well. And we need to parent this Steve Jobs video to this Macintosh, so that when we move around the Macintosh, the Jobs will follow. So I would like to center it just a bit more like this, and maybe make it larger. Let's see if it looks good. All right, so now as you can see in this scene, we also had these two kind of lines. So what we'll do, we'll just choose our pen tool again, and we'll create some shapes similar to these shapes, just some waves. And it's important that you make sure that nothing is selected when you are painting these shape layers, because, for example, if you select some layer and you start painting, you will start creating a mask. And we don't want that, right? We don't need a mask in this case. We need layers. As you can see, the stroke here is white. So let's just choose a color. I think it was something like this in the original. Doesn't matter too much in this case. Let's just leave this color. And now I would like to make these lines a bit more pretty, so that they look a bit better, a bit more harmonious, let's say. Okay, so what we can do now to avoid painting another line, we can duplicate this one and flip it. But firstly, what I want to do, I just want to add some detail to this line. And to do that, I would like to add this wave modifier. You see, when you add wave, this is what happens. And I think the wavelength needs to be like 200 or so. You can play around with phase as well. It doesn't matter too much. It just makes it look a bit more organic again. And now highlight this shape, Ctrl D, move it up. And now right click this, press transform and press flip vertical. And it's somewhere out of bounds now, but just move it back. And you can also flip it horizontal, so that it's different on each side. Right, so, and after we have created these two lines, we need to animate the sliding of this computer into the frame. So to do that, what we need to do is we need to create a 3D camera. So we press right click new camera like this and press OK. Now we need to create a couple of null objects, because we'll have a couple of motions, and to make all the null objects 3D, and just parent the camera to the nulls like this. And just now let's choose the initial point of our camera, but I just noticed that these shapes are not 3D, so we need them to move with everything as well, and also turn on the motion blur everywhere so that the motion looks more smooth. So now, as you can see, it's smooth, it moves together. So just make the initial point of the null somewhere here and type 0 here. Now use the keyframes and give them some cool shape, maybe like this. Great. And I want it to be a bit longer like this. Nice. And what I want to do now is I want to create like a slight zoom in. So we create another keyframe here before this motion ends. This is important. Maybe even here. And now we just zoom in like a couple of pixels, not too much. And we also use these keyframes, and let's check how the movement looks together. No, it doesn't look right. It's too drastic. Now it looks better. So it needs to be super slight. Just needs to add some dynamics to it all. The next thing we should do is to create text animations. So let's create 2 text layers here. The first one will be when. And by the way, we need to choose this font here. It will be in the font pack in the description below. And we need to make fill the same color as these shapes. Make it much smaller. Like this, duplicate it, and here you should type U. And now we should create some kind of animations, and we should time these animations to what he says basically. So also make these 2 layers 3D because they need to move around with everything else, and just like place one below the other. Now 3D, motion blur, and now for the first word when, we need to create this kind of animation. So we press position like this. Here in the range selector we should animate end and offset like this. The first keyframes should be when he starts saying when, and the last keyframes should end where he ends saying that. Here we don't need to ease anything, it can stay linear, but here it should be 100% both. In the beginning it should be 0%. Here in advanced you should choose several things. So here you should choose words, because if you leave characters, all the letters will slide one by one, and I just want here the whole word to be animated. Here you should choose ramp up. Here you should choose ease low 100%, ease high 25%, and just move the position down like this. You see now I still have characters animated, so they move letter by letter, and I just want to change that to words. And it needs to be much earlier. Now I want to animate this word by mask. So we choose U and we create a mask like this. Now we need to go to M, we press M, and we animate mask path. We go a bit forward, we press V, we double click here and we drag it like this. And here we need to ease it so that it looks more smooth. Okay, now for the grow up animation. As you can see, I chose like a scribbly font for this, and let's create a text layer and let's type grow up like this. We need to do a couple of things here. So firstly we choose the font, and I use this one, I think, Mature it's called. Now let's just right align it so that it can be composited well on this right side of the computer like this. And now we need to choose white fill color, and we need to choose here in the blending mode exclusion. You see, it's a cool effect Bymaximise uses very often in his videos. Also enable 3D, enable motion blur, and just move this a bit to the front, like 10 pixels, so that it doesn't exist somewhere between the layers. So he starts saying grow up somewhere around here, and what we should do here is we again need to go to like expand layer settings. We should press animate like this, position, and basically we do like the same animation we just did. We animate the end and offset. He stops saying it here, grow up. We go to advanced, we choose words, we ease high, we ease low 100, ease high 25, and we ramp up here shape. And it is not animating because we haven't changed the position here, right? So now it's animating. Now what we just need to do is we need to create a mask here so that, you know, the words slide into this mask and they are not visible while they are below this mask. So you see, we need to change the position and make it lower here. Now it looks great. So also, again, we need to press F and give it 25 feather so that, you know, while animation is happening, you don't see these sharp edges. For example, let's turn it off. You see, this sharp edge doesn't look good, so always use feathers. 25 works well in this case, you see. There's a small blur here. I want to make these letters a bit more alive, and I want to give a bit of wiggle. So we need to press animate position again, and we will have this animator 2 here. And we need to press selector wiggly. And here in the wiggly selector, we just change the y-axis position just a bit. And now you will see that the letters will jump around a bit. Okay, now some finishing touches for this scene. What I want to do here is I want to firstly create a vignette as an adjustment layer, and by the way, this vignette will be used throughout the video, so I will just leave it here on top. And I think I need to make the amount a bit lower because it's too harsh, and something like this works great. 68. Let's leave it at that. Also, let's duplicate this adjustment layer. Let's delete the vignette and let's call it invert slide in. And let's just add an invert effect. And here we just make it 100 when we see the computer fully. Again, ease it and give it this shape. It will just give it an additional layer of depth. And also, like I said before, we need to composite this Steve Jobs interview better. So first, let's go to our mask we cut out on the computer and let's give it some feather. I think 2 will work great. More than that will be an overkill. Maybe 3, right? 3 looks good also, but you can see as we go up with the feather, for example, if we make it 10, it still looks good, but here's some artifacts start appearing, like it bleeds out, you know? So, but I think in this case 10 still looks good, so let's just choose some middle ground and let's give it 5. But the reason I'm saying it to you now is because you don't want to make the feather too big, otherwise it will look bad. But here 5 looks great. And here let's go to this Jobs speaking layer and let's give it bad TV effect. The reason I'm using it is because it has this scanline overlay. It looks really cool, and I usually give it scanline's thickness 2, or maybe 1 will work better in this case. And I also gave it bars overlay because it creates some, you know, some flicker, and it will look very cool after we render it. Now let's give it a couple of more effects. And another effect I want to give is CC lens. So firstly, let's press this button, center, and just press it roughly in the center of the screen. Doesn't need to be super precise, right? And we need to up the size a lot. So let's solve it and let's see how it looks. Ideally, we want it to replicate the tilted shape, you know, the bent shape of the screen, like this. So it looks as if the screen is lens shaped, you know, instead of being flat. And it just creates a very cool layer of depth. So you see the scan lines also bent, but the resolution is kind of low, so if we make it 2, we'll see it better. So see, now it looks much better than it did before. Also, I like to give it deep glow, but this is too much, obviously. Let's see what happens if we put it behind. I think it looks better in front of bad TV, and I just give it 0.1 or something like that. And lastly, I want to give it curves to give it contrast. And what I do here is this. Just make this low and make this part high so that it has a lot of contrast and the colors pop a bit. So here's how our first bit of this video looks. And just as he says you tend, like after, just as he starts saying the next phrase, what we should do is we should just create another adjustment layer, give it deep glow effect, probably put it on top of everything else, give it like exposure of 3 or maybe 2, and we want to make a flash transition, but we won't make it with, you know, with a film burn asset. We'll just create a deep glow transition. I haven't seen anyone else do that, but I think it looks better than if you make it with exposure effect. It just looks cooler. And what you need to do is you just make it 0 on both ends, and here the opacity should be 100%. The reason why I'm not animating the exposure but I'm animating the opacity is because, let me just show you, if you even make the exposure 0, you know, but you still have deep glow active, if you disable it, you will see that, you know, somehow it just changes the exposure. So it's very slight. You see I'm switching it on and off right now. Super slight, but you can still see some minor change. This is the reason why I always just animate the opacity, you know, of this kind of layers. Again, ease it, and here you need to create this kind of shape. And of course, after the flash, you need to cut. So you just need to cut all the camera, the computer, and we still have Steve speaking, but let's just cut him as well. And let's disable the visual part. And also we don't need the white PG anymore. So basically we transition to black, but we will add something. Don't worry, it won't be black. Let's continue with our next animation. It will be this eye, so just drag it into our folder, place it, by the way, let's rename this Deep Glow Flash. Just place the footage below the Deep Glow Flash, like this. Choose our font, which is Aonic Pro. Not sure how that is pronounced, but here is the name, Aonic Pro Bold. Make it a bit smaller. And now you need to place it on a circular curve, so that it duplicates the shape of the iris, you know. And by the way, we can summon the proportional grid, and we can just make the eye to be in the dead center like this. But to do that, we need to make it larger. Just press S and slide the scale a bit until it's flush with the screen border. Now let's go to our utent layer, and now while it's chosen, let's just long click here and choose ellipse tool. Press Shift to create an ideal circle. Perfect circle. Now we have this mask, and to put the text on this shape, what we need to do is we need to go to text, we need to go to path options, and here in path you choose mask 1, and you have a bunch of settings here. So to put it below the eye, you just need to change this parameter, less margin, like this. And I think it also needs to be moved a bit to the top, like this. And now to animate the sliding animation, so it goes from here to here and reveals itself, what we need to do is we need to again animate this last margin. So let's create a keyframe somewhere here so that it will be the final position of it, and this will be like the beginning position, right? So ease the keyframes, give it motion blur, because otherwise it will look ugly, and again create a mask. But this one can be, I think, rectangular. So you see it slides in like this. And again, to prevent this sharp cut-off borders, just get our second mask and give it a feather of, can be a large number like this. And here we have our great animation. And while we just another text layer, and we type in 2, and we get our second font from our font pair, which is Mature Pro, or just Mature, and we put it inside the eye like this. And we need to animate two things, so add fastbox blur effect, animate the blur radius, make it like this, 25 in the beginning, and also animate the opacity. And now press U, so we have all our animate parameters visible, and here just make the blur 0 and create a keyframe for opacity, and in the beginning make opacity 0, so that yeah, it needs to be 100 in the end. Right, and one more great addition we can make is to track the eye and make the text move together with the eye. You know, it has these slight movements, and it will be very cool if the text is replicating the movements of the eye. So to do that, just go to the first frame of the eye and just press track motion like this. Now you need to enlarge the track point like this, and just press this button, Analyze Forward. It will take some time, and if it takes very long, like in this case, just press stop and make this much smaller, maybe like this. After the tracker did its job, you can just check out how the keyframes look, and in this case they look good enough, I would say. No need for some crazy precision. So here, let's check where animation starts. Yeah, to do that, go in this window, just got it. And now what we need to do here, we need to press Edit Target, and we need to choose our text layer. Press OK again. And you see that now it looks together with the eye, but there's a problem, right? It just shifted a bit. So to fix that, it's very easy. We just need to change the anchor point. Sorry, the anchor point of this layer. Let's disable the grid so that I can see the eye better. And great. And after the eye cuts, we also cut the text, and we'll also cut this text. And to keep it neat, let's just trim all the layers so that it will be easier for us to navigate the file after. Don't forget to put the vignette to the very top. And also what I did, I just gave the eye layer a deep glow of 0.5 exposure, because without it, it just looks super dark. You know, it's not cool to look at. So I just gave it a deep glow. Now let's drag out the white BG so that it lasts throughout the whole composition. And here, what I want to do, I will just fade out everything basically. So go to opacity, and here make the opacity 0. Copy it, go to the first, like to the frame where you want it to start, and just paste it to both text layers. Now hide Steve here. I don't want to see him. So the next scene is super simple. We just go to our asset pack and we copy our dialogue scene. So first guy looks like this. Let's summon proportional grid so that we can center it better. So let's find a moment where he says something. Let's make it smaller. So he's yapping. And as he says told, I want to cut, and I want to transition to this boy. So it should be even a couple of frames earlier. Nice. And they need to cut very well. Needs to cut technique, because you see here the heads are on a different level. So we just need to move the second guy head to the top like this, so that they match cut perfectly. Like this. And now, when we have our cuts in place, just pre-compose that. Just composition duration to the time span of selected layers. We need that, so the composition isn't like super long, so it doesn't stretch until here. It's just a short one. And here what we need to do, we need to create round corners like this. So the easiest way I found how to do that is just to choose a rounded rectangle tool here and make it much smaller than we actually need it. And I will show you how to fix that now. So now you just need to go to your mask settings and fix your mask expansion parameter like this. You see? And we need to move the boy to the bottom as well. Yeah, looks good. Now move the whole thing to the bottom a bit again, so that those squares are lined up to the center lines, and those squares are lined up to the center lines as well, so that it's in the dead center. Now we just need to show the get told letters basically. So again, create a text layer, put it somewhere here, trim it so that it's neat. Our font, Ionic Pro bold. And now for the color, we need to check what green we used. So we don't want to to recreate it from memory. We just go to this color, we copy the hex code, we press OK, and here we just go to fill again and we paste it. Let's make it a bit smaller like this, and let's move it here. We can just make them appear like this, simply without any animation, or we can add some animation to our taste. I think let's just leave it like that for now. So I will move those text layers a bit so that they look better. Now we also need to animate that word. So he says it here. Let's create another text layer. Let's type in that. Let's move it here. Let's choose our Matter Pro. This font, white fill, right, in the dead center, and exclusion blending mode. This is a staple of this style, so use it. Now let's create a mask and let's reveal the word with the mask. So create a keyframe here and another one here. Needs to be a bit quicker. Okay, give it motion blur, ease it. And now what I also want to do is I want to create an adjustment here, and I want to blur everything except of that. So as soon as this word starts being revealed, I want everything to start blurring basically. So animate blur radius from this keyframe and make it 25. And it's done. Let's get to the next one. So the next scene we need to create will look like this. So it's basically just, using the right assets and also timing the text to the moment when all the lights go off, basically. So I think it looks very, very cool. So let's go to our asset pack. Let's choose our city. Let's go to our recreation. So we need to cut just as soon as Steve starts saying the word. So highlight all the layers in question, press Command Shift D and delete them. Now place our city layer here, make it bigger, place it just on top of what we just cut, and find the good position. I think let's just copy the scale from here. Scale, and let's just copy the position. It's default position. All right, so we need to move it to the left a bit, and let's see what we did in the original file. So the world, this layer, it's this script type font, very cool. And you see that it has a gradient, so it's darker here and it's lighter on top. And it's animated, it's faded in, you see, faded in, like it has an opacity fade, and it also has a blur fade. So in the beginning it's 16 blur and it goes to 0. So I think let's just copy that and go to our recreation. And then it has this flash. And to create that flash, you can just cut the layer several times, and it will create this effect as if the text is flickering. Bymaximise uses that effect very often. So let's just copy all these layers and let's go to our recreation and let's paste it. Let's move it to the bottom like this and let's put it here. And this is the way it is here, as you can see. The trick here is to place the layers in a cool way, in a geometrical way, so that they look cool on our background B-roll. And also, it's just a simple animation, so they appear, and when they appear, they are a bit blurry like this. So we can also copy all these layers like this and paste them here. We need to move it a bit to the right. Alright, now we just got this layer. Again, we make Steve Jobs not seen. And our next animation is very interesting because we have this effect where we see the text appear below the guy. And it's again a staple of Bymaximise style. He uses it all the time. So let's just learn how to create that. Let's go to our asset folder. Where is our guy? Here, board guy. Let's drag him in, move him to the bottom like this. I think it works from the very beginning. And now what we can do here, we can just recompose him, like this. And we need to enter the composition, and we need to go to composition settings, and we need to choose 30 here because we'll use rotoscoping now, and rotoscoping will only work if the composition in question has the same frames per second as this main composition. And now just go to rotobrush tool, double click, and just start painting like this. We just need to highlight the guy, but it doesn't need to be super precise. It's fine if it's, a bit dirty because it will only be seen like during, 1 second. So people won't notice basically if you do a bad rotoscoping job. So don't worry about that. To enlarge the brush, you just need to press Alt, hold Alt, and slide the mouse. What you can also do now to make this, edge smoother, you can long press this and choose refine edge tool. You should choose some scale of brush like this, and you can just go over this edge and just make it smoother. I'm just showing you so that you need to know that, because sometimes you need to make a good rotobrushing job. But again, in this case it's not very important, but it's worth to know it. So this is how it's done. You just go over the edge of his silhouette like this. And will that do? Yeah, I think that's enough. Alright, now here you should always choose best. Now to simplify our life a bit, what we can do here is we can just drag this out a bit until we see this button, freeze. Make sure we are on the first frame, it's important, and then just press freeze. And now we need to wait for a bit. But basically what this does, it means that we will not have to wait, you know, each time we want to play it back. So when we freeze it, it just becomes pre-rendered and it plays super fast. So what we get is this guy, but the background is cut out, so we can place something behind him. So now we need to duplicate this layer again, and in the bottom layer we need to just disable the rotobrush effect. And you can see that now if we create a text layer and we type anything here and we put it in between like a sandwich, you see that we have this coolest effect ever, which is this ability to put anything behind him. So let's see what I had in the original and let's recreate that. So we say live your life, right? So let's choose our Ionic Pro font instead, and let's type live your like this. I think it looks something like this in the original, and it was black so that we have more contrast. One more thing that we can do to make it look a bit cooler, we can give it a bit of fastbox blur, not as a transition, but just, you know, just as a passive effect, so that it matches the natural blur of this video a bit better. It's not as sharp. And in the original, I had this typewriter effect to reveal the text. So basically, let me show you again. You just basically, I use effects console and I just type in typewriter, but you can go in the effects panel. I mean, you know where the effects panel is, I won't show you that. And just type in typewriter and just time that to how this is being said, basically. So he stops saying you're here. And now let's create another text layer and let's type live. And we also need to put it in between. Let's trim it like this. Let's look at our composition, enlarge it like this. Now, instead of fill here, we need to disable fill and we need to enable stroke and we need to make it black. But you see it's very, very thick. So just start making the stroke smaller. In this case, probably 2 pixels will work. And to create the animation, we'll have just the opacity and fastbox blur fade. So I can just copy the keyframes from here. You already know how that's done. It's very important that all the text is timed very well to what is being said. And here, just to match the fastbox blur, let's end it not at 0 but at 2. And now it will look very cool. And now as he starts saying inside, we'll have this match cut animation. So again, as you know, match cut is one of the staples of this style. So we'll have typewriter effect on inside this will just appear. We'll have an arrow pointing to the flash cut and we'll have gradient and deep glow on the text. So let's just copy the text layers. I think there's no need to spend time on explaining how to do that. You already know. By the way, I think I will leave the project file for you in the description so that, you know, you can use it as a cheat sheet. And here we need to cut this white solid because we don't need it anymore. For now, I mean, maybe we'll need it in future. Okay, I will show you how to do this arrow, I think, after I do the match cut. So to create this match cut, what we need to do, I mean the flash cut or match cut. Basically, the flash cut is just a quick match cut. And we need to move every layer to the right from the previous layer, so that every layer is shown within 2 frames, like this. So you see, we'll have this effect. And we need to cut here, like this. And now what we need to do, we need to match all the sizes of each planet each eye so that they match perfectly like this. Enlarge this, go to the next one. Doesn't need to be precise, you know, because it will be only seen for like a couple of milliseconds basically, so don't worry too much. This one needs to be centered. This is our final thing. Oh no, we have more, and let's extend the final one. And let's check how it looks. So it looks good, but there's one problem. You know, the backgrounds cover our text and they spoil the composition. So let's pre-compose everything here. Let's trim this one. Maybe let's make it a bit longer so that we have some, you know, some backup plan. Let's pre-compose like this. And now what we can do, we can just make an ellipse mask. Avoid scaling it like this because you won't have a perfect circle this way. Just do it like this. Let's scroll and check if everything looks good. I think it looks good enough, but it needs feather. Something maybe like this, like 83 or so. No, actually it needs less than that because you see in these cases you will see the borders, but maybe we need to enlarge it. Let's go over it again and make sure that everything is in the dead center. For example, this eye is not centered. Need to center it and make it larger. This one is not centered as well, I think. It should be like this, maybe a bit larger. This one needs to be centered as well and enlarged like this. Disable snapping, but it still snaps. I need to disable rulers. Still snaps for some reason. Why does it snap? I don't know. Okay, and now let's check what we have. Almost great, but we need to, I think, make everything bigger. And we need to make the first planet bigger as well. Let's check. Now great. Now I like it, except of this and this. So the idea of match cut is that, you know, it's in the name. Everything should match as good as possible. Still have problems with this eye, I think. I think now it should be good. Yeah, now it looks good. And also I promised to show you how to create an arrow. So it's super easy. Just grab our pen, make it white, make a shape like this, and you just finalize basically the shape. Now you can rotate it a bit so that it points exactly to our flash cut. And now to animate it, you can just go to Add, Trim Paths. Now you should animate either the start or the end, it doesn't matter. I usually do it with the end. And here just choose individually and place the first shape on top of the second one and give it motion blur. So you see, for example, if you choose simultaneously, they will animate at the same time. We don't need that, we need individually like this. And if you place the second shape above the first one, the pointer of the arrow will animate first. And again, we don't need that, so just put shape 1 on top of shape 2, maybe give it some easing and make it faster like this. Nice. So our next scene we're going to recreate looks something like this. Okay, so for the next scene we're going to do something a little more advanced. Let's get our asset here, the movie fragment we're going to use. So again, we move it to the bottom where our previous thing was trimmed here. And now we have to do several things. So we should pre-compose it a couple of times. So firstly, press pre-compose and choose this option, right? When you've done that, go inside and pre-compose it again, but this time choose this and then enter this. And here you need to scale it a bit like that so that you don't see the interface while I was recording my screen, and then pre-compose it again like this. And here what we also need to do, so we need to find where he starts saying the exact phrase, but I forgot to do one thing, which is very, very important. So we have created several compositions inside each other, and now what we need to do is we need to make all these compositions 30 frames per second, because otherwise our rotobrush will not work correctly. So this is now 30 frames per second. Now change this to 30 as well, and the final nested composition. Again, change it to 30 frames per second. Now it's all good. And we will work here inside this composition 8. Let me just move the audio so that it timed to the video. Right, now it's correct. Okay, so let's cut it here where he stops saying our phrase. We're going to use, and now we need to do several things. So first of those things is 3D tracking the camera. Where's my tracker? If we don't see the tracker, we should go to window tracker. It's on, but here it is, but I couldn't find it at first. So we press track camera here, and also we choose detailed analysis here, and we should wait. You know, here it shows you how much is left. So basically I need to only track 63 frames, so 2 seconds, not that much. Now let's wait. When it finishes tracking, what we need to do is we need to highlight everything like this, and we should press create null and camera like this. Now we need to create 2 text layers. First one will be try not to. Oh, sorry, the first one should be just try like this, then duplicate it. No, firstly we make it 3D, we go to track null, press P to show position, copy it, paste it to try. Then we go to orientation, copy it and paste it to try. And now we don't see it, I guess because it's too small now, right? So now here he says not to, so we duplicate it, trim it, drag it down and just type not to. Like this. I wanted to have just a stroke, not a fill. And I can also give it deep glow so that it's more visible and looks cooler. And you can see that now this text, it moves along with the camera movement. So it looks very good. Let's just trim it at the end. So this is dealt with, and we also need to create bash into the walls too much text. So again, we go to our 3D camera tracker, and I want this text to be attached to this wall. So I just highlight all the track points on the wall so that tracker has an easier job to do. It's easier for him this way, but I forgot to move to the first frame. It's very important, so let's do it again. When you are 3D tracking or rotobrushing, never forget to do it starting from the very first frame. Right, so now I should add another text layer, and I will go to my original composition and I will just copy the text from there. Here it is, I guess. Yes, bash into the walls too much. So paste it here. Now go to track null created second, make this 3D, copy orientation. Now it's kind of off, I guess. Looks weird, but that will do. I think that's fine. It just needs to work, you know, doesn't need to be perfect. It works, you know. So this is how it moves. I think it's a bit too stretched vertically, I mean horizontally, so let's just stretch it vertically as well, like this. Scale it down. It's more or less good. Doesn't look too realistic, but again, it will only be seen for 1 second, and it will only be partly seen. You will not see the full thing, so that's good enough. So now you need to rotobrush this stuff. So just choose this layer, press this button, and now just do a quick rotobrushing job, you know. No need to make it high level, just make it super simple. And I think this will work. Okay, so now I need to freeze it like this. Let's wait. While it's freezing, you can check if it's freezing correctly. No borders are thrown off. That's very important. So, okay, it did its job, I think. Did it quite well. So now we duplicate it, we move this stuff to the top, and we disable rotobrush tool here. And now we have our text on the wall. So we can do a bit of tweaking here. I just think that it needs to be maybe to the left a bit, and maybe like this, you know, so it looks more realistic. And maybe you just need to rotate it like that. And maybe I need to scale it a bit more so that the text is not stretched. All right, so for now that will do. It looks good enough. Now what we can do, we can choose a different blending mode. I think exclusion should work here. Or you can do this. You can do overlay. Let's add a typewriter effect. So he stops speaking here. And let's give it opacity of 50. Let's duplicate it. And this will look, I think, better. But the starting point of his speech should be earlier. Yeah, looks right. Now it looks right. So the final touch we want to do here, of course, and we need to move it to the left like this. Keyframe is this. Tell me in the comments if you think this looks good or I did something incorrectly. Maybe I should have created 2 separate camera trackers, you know, for the wall and for the whole composition like I did first. But I think this looks good. Let's just give it some more rotation, maybe like this. Yeah, I'm honestly very satisfied with it. So let's just delete the audio from here. But I think we lost the try not to part. Yeah, let's move it like this to the left. Yeah, now it looks, I think, fire. Okay, let's progress with the next scene. Let's just trim this. So he says, try to have a nice family life. And for this, we will use this scene. Again, we'll need to rotobrush it, you know, so that the text is behind their heads. Basically, all the techniques we will use, we already know. So let's just do it quickly. So here's our family life. And by the way, we should put it here in the main comp, which is called recreation. Let's make it smaller like this, I think, even smaller. To move it to the left a bit, trim it. So here he starts to say the next sentence, so we just trim it. And I guess here I need to pre-compose it as well and use this setting. And what I need to do, I need to enter this comp. I need to check the settings. And of course it should be 30 frames per second. So here we should do basically the same 2 things. We should just firstly use the camera tracker. So let's track our camera. Let's enable detailed analysis and let's wait. Let's see if it works this time. Yeah, it works very good. So here we need to put the text behind the heads on the background. So let's just choose all the points which are behind them. And this is a good scene because you see you have these contrasty picture frames in the back. So it will be very easy for After Effects tracker to work with this, you know, as opposed if you just have some kind of like clean background with no, you know, elements which are contrasted to the foreground, or just, you know, maybe it's a plain wall with no pattern or anything like that, just, you know, plain white paint. This will be hard. I guess we don't need these two. Okay, so again, create null in the camera, move it to the bottom so that it's easier to work with. Where the fuck is this layer? Okay, here it is. Trim it, just, you know, the same workflow basically. So, but firstly, let's give it a frame like I did before so that we have this in mind from the start. And see, here it cuts out a bit. So probably I just need to move this up. And we need to center it, so let's check out if it's centered properly. Now it is. Okay, what did I have? So I just had a typewriter effect and have a just appeared. So let's replicate it. Let's go try to have, oh no, it was just try to. Okay, let's move it down. White fill, typewriter effect. And by the way, when you use typewriter effect from the effects panel, it's the same branch selector. It is the same if you just animate position, you know, but it has just less options and it's a preset basically. So you should know that it has the same mechanic to it. Let's duplicate it. Let's delete the animator here and let's type have a like this. And it's cool if you have, you know, some elements of your letters overlap a bit with this picture. It looks cool. So utilize that as well. So remember that it's very important to time everything perfectly to the voiceover, or if you cut to the bit, time everything to the bit perfectly. So basically it should happen within the same frame. Okay, so now let's create this 3D text. And by the way, yeah, I think I'll just duplicate this and I will make it 3D. And let's see if it follows the 3D camera. No, because it has the wrong position. So in order to work correctly, it needs to have the same position as this track null. So After Effects thinks that, you know, this is situated exactly on this wall. So here I need to create 3 layers. Nice family life. And only one ingredient is missing now, and it is rotoscoping, of course. So let's just highlight the guys. By the way, rotoscoping is smart. I just recently learned that it takes into account the masks, you see here. And again, the same mistake from my side. Just need to move it to the very first frame. Okay, so now I can try freezing it. It doesn't look very good. It's a messy rotobrush, but you know, I guess it should work. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, and you know, honestly, it won't be noticeable probably, so let's check in full quality. You see the edges look weird a bit, but if we do some magic here, for example, we can increase feather and we can shift edge negatively like this, 28% or so. It will look good. And we should position the letters now. We should make them all smaller scale. Nice. Family should look something like this. And we can make this a bit bigger. Nice. Just trying to find a good composition. Does it look good? How did it look in my original thing? Nice family life. Yeah, let's just copy that. Just recreate. I won't recreate it, but we'll take inspiration from it. Okay, I think that should do. So now I just want to copy the text effects from here. So let's go inside this composition. I think they're inside it. So it had blur and a deep glow. And let's just paste all the effects like that. But I think the deep glow is too hard. Probably it's because it had a different color. So let's also change the color. Let's put it at 0.5. And by the way, if you want to copy the effects parameters, just copy the effect like this, Control C. And if it has the same effect already, just paste it, and all the, you know, the parameters will be pasted to this layer. Doesn't look too contrasty, but I like it in a way. It looks kind of cool, so I'll just leave it like that. Here we have a problem with her, with the rotobrush, so let's just leave it like that. I think that's good enough. There's some kind of glitch. It's because the glow bleeds over to this side. So let's do it properly and let's redo it from the start. Let's just give it best because I forgot to do it at first. Let's make feather 10. Let's check manually how it performs. So, you know, here's where the problem starts to occur. So let's kill it. Let's remove it here, one frame to the front. And if you want to, you know, accurately rotobrush your earrings, I think that's not worth it because you will need to, probably you will have to use some other tool for it because I'm not sure if, you know, the built-in rotobrush tool can do it well. Maybe you need Mocha or something like that, or CapCut even. So just clear up. I know I say all the time that, you know, that's good enough, don't waste time on this, you know, minimal things, but in this case I think it really looked very bad. So fuck, when should I stop, by the way? What the hell? No. Okay, let's go. Okay, let's press freeze and let's wait. Move this out of the way so we can see if the problem is fixed. Yeah, it worked. Okay, let's just preview it again. Now it looks better. You see here on her cheek. Even looks, you know, realistic, I would say so. Okay, so let's trim all the layers we don't need anymore. And the next thing we have is have fun. This is super easy. We just use some appropriate footage where some people are having fun. And by the way, don't forget to trim everything so that you don't have a mess of a project after. And now let's just enlarge this so that, you know, it's flush. We'll make this a bit. I already got it here. You know, this half just appears like that. Does it have any animation? I think it have a mask, but the mask is not animated anyway. So I can just, and as for fun, let me just show you what I did, but I already showed you this. So it's basically, it has this one animator and it has a weekly selector with a small position change. So let's do that again. So this was our text with a smiley. This was the font, Matter Pro. This is the font. And I don't like this mask, so let's just get rid of it. Let's copy the color. This is a good color. Paste it. I think it also has just a deep glow effect, right? So maybe, you know, the deep glow is too pronounced. Maybe you need to make it lower, but I think in this case one works. So to create this effect where letters are a bit, you know, they're wiggling a bit, what you need to do is to go to animate position. Again, I've already told you about that, but let's just go through it again. So you pressed animate position and you created this animator. And here you don't need to change anything. You just need to add a wiggly selector like this. And you just need to shift its X and Y positions just a little bit. You see, so it wiggles both vertically and horizontally. So the next shot is save a little money. We have this Breaking Bad scene where he does the money laundering, and we have some sliding of the text. So let me just check again how I did that. Did I do it by position? Yeah, I just animated the position. Okay, so let's take our footage, save money. Let's go to recreation, comp again. And by the way, you can see that the resolution is quite low. It's in 720. You should always search for at least full HD assets if you can. But in this case, for example, I haven't found this movie clip in good resolution, so I just had to resort to using, what I had. It looks very cool if we just start from this when he opens the door, but in this case we have very limited time to show this scene, so here we will cut. Okay, so we need to create 3 text layers. The first one will be save, here. It will be our favorite font, Ionic Pro. It will be white, and it will have this exclusion preset, or I should say blending mode. So save, duplicate it a little, and now scale it down so that it occupies the same width you see as the first line. Leave the gap between the lines small, looks cooler this way. And again, just type in money and scale this down as well so that it's the same width. Now you should check if this looks good in terms of placement, so you should either place it like in the dead center. You can put it in the lower third, but here you shouldn't put it in the top third because you will cover the guy's face. Won't look good. And here I think I had, what did I have? Yeah, save a, okay. So let's save the position here. Let's save the position here. This will be our current position, the final position. And here we need to just move it up. We should move the keyframe here so it's out of bounds a bit. Give it motion blur, and okay, so here we have our position saved already, so this should slide in from the left. And same thing with this, it will just slide up, enable motion blur. Great. And after that, everything should just, I think it blurred out like this. So it went from 0 to 25 blur. So let's just copy the keyframes and let's just paste them here. And here we of course cut. So the next scene will be again this Steve Jobs computer scene, and also we'll have some shapes which will be moving around, and also we'll have a film burn as a transition. So let's just find the film burn. I have it here in my film pack, so let's find an appropriate one. It shouldn't be too long. I think this is what I used originally. You see it's very big, so we can rotate it by 90 degrees. And we can scale it down to 50 degrees or so, and then just move it here. Now, you should find the cut point where you want to transition, and you should find the brightest moment, this one. And now you give it screen blending mode. And this is how it will look. In my opinion, it looks very good. So here we will need our white background again. So you remember we turned it off some time ago. Now let's just turn it back on. What else? Need our computer. Let's see if it already fits the Jobs video. I think we need to copy the job speaking. We need to copy the position. We need to paste it here. No, because it was parented to the computer. So, right, no worries. So let's just copy the effects and let's just move it manually here. Let's just make it a bit bigger this time. And let's put the 60 line center in the center of it, like this, I think. Here's our transition. This is the exact moment. So now again, make this 3D, give it motion blur, parent it to the computer. And we need to create 2 moving shapes. So we can just copy our old shapes, duplicate them, we can go here. And you see that we see them now. So here what we need to do to make them move, we need to add trim paths like this. Just like we created the arrow, it's the same mechanism. So make it go from 100 to, so he stops speaking here. This is where we'll end our shape movement as well, more or less. We can adapt it later. Ease it, paste it here as well. So I don't like the fact that they move in the same direction. So I think what I can do is just change the trim path settings. So maybe start, no, it's the same. Maybe it should move from 100 to 0 0. Is it right? No. Okay, we'll do it a different way. So, oh, now it looks correctly. So what did I do? So start should be 100 and the end should move from 100 to 0. Okay, so here he says that's a very limited life. And for the animation, I just used like a simple appearance of text. It's inside the pre-comp here. So you see, I just made that slide up from behind this picture. You see, behind this computer, it just slides up. That's A just appears, very flashes like this. Limited life also just appears. So let's recreate that here. So we need our green color and we can copy it from these shapes. So just go inside the shapes, press Ctrl C and just paste the color here. Make this a bit smaller like this, maybe a bit bigger. So here what we should do is animate position. In the range selector settings, just animate and an offset again. Here in advanced, use ramp up, ease low 100, ease high 25, and just change the position in the beginning point, but that doesn't matter. By the way, you don't need to animate this. You don't need to press any keyframes here. You just, after you've done everything here, you just need to change this position and it should stay constant. Let's leave it like that. And by the way, if you want to copy some animation that you created this way, you just create another text layer. This is just for, for example, move it to the bottom. And here you just go text and you just copy this animator. You just Ctrl C it, you see, we just pasted it and the animation pasted. So you can, for example, do some animation with this position animation once, and then you can just copy it how many times you need. Okay, so here what's missing still is the mask, because it should look as if it's appearing from behind this computer. Let's give it a bit more time so we can enjoy the animation a bit longer. And now let's create very, like that. Now here he starts saying very. I decided to just put it in the center and also make it exclusion. But one more layer of coolness that we can create here is actually this. So let's just cut it. Let's go to this layer. Let's pre-compose it. Let's press this, leave all attributes inside. And let's put it here, this very. And this way it will have all these effects, that this screen has. It will look cooler, you see? So now the problem is just making it centered. I need to move it to the left a bit more. So it starts here. Now we just need to do this. So to cut like this, you need to press Shift Ctrl D or Shift Command D if you are working on Mac, like I do. And just do it a bunch of times. And just delete every other frame, to make it flash. Yeah, great. Now we just need to create 2 more text layers, a limited life. Now I see that I have a layer which is too long. It extends all the way to the beginning, so I need to trim it. Where is my limited? Yeah, it just needs a different color. So let's copy the fill color from here, paste here, limited, and let's make life a bit bigger so that it's a bit more interesting. So again, trim the text layers accordingly. But you see, something is still missing. So what's missing is actually some movement of this whole scene. So we can do 2 things here. We can either make everything 3D and create a 3D camera and make it zoom, but I think we'll do it a bit simpler. So we just pre-compose it like this, and we just change the scale slightly. So that 115 maybe, even less, 110 will be more than enough. Then just probably make it eased like this. And also what you can do here is you can just wiggle the position just a tiny bit, So wiggle 0.520, let's say. Yeah, so it looks a bit more alive, This needs to be a bit bigger to match all other texts. By the way, do we have any problems because of no background? I don't think so. It just blends in with this background, so it looks good. Okay, so now we have our 2 final scenes. So let's copy again our assets. Let's close everything we don't need right now. Let's find the first frame where we need to put our new b-roll. And let's disable the music. So here he says life can be much broader. And right when he says much broader, I want to cut to this shot because, it makes sense. Here I should cut. Okay, so here we'll just, stupidly copy the text from here. So this text life can be, we'll just copy. And the next effect is actually quite interesting, so I will show it right now. Okay, so we should create text layer and move it to the bottom like this, trim it. And here I made this effect, you see, so much like the U letter is being typed on the keyboard many times. So it's actually super easy, but a bit tedious effect to make, but let me just show you. So to do that, what you need to expand this, you need to go to text and you need to animate source text. And here you just need to move one frame forward, create another keyframe, press U once, so you see what happens in this case. But a very important thing is that you should have your anchor point in the bottom left corner. It's super important because otherwise it will look just unnatural, and it should be on the first frame. And just keep creating new keyframes and adding letters like this. You can even not press this, just go one frame further and just press U. I never knew how to animate a source text before I tried doing this effect, so quite interesting for me. Let's check how it turns out. I don't know why the hell it doesn't do what I wanted to do. I just wanted it to grow from left to right, but if you know, let me know in the comments. So this is good enough. And I also think that it was exclusion, but I'm not sure that it looks that great, but okay, let's keep it like that. And also what we can do, we can tilt it so that it copies the tilt of this hill. Maybe we can not tilt this, but tilt the broader part. Maybe this can be normal. Yeah, I think it looks more interesting than what I had in the original. I didn't take, the composition into account. So I don't know, should I also rotate this? Should it be exclusion? Yeah, I think it works. And it also had some kind of, blur fade in. So let's just copy the blur keyframes. Here, fastbox blur, copy these keyframes, paste it here. And the very last scene we'll edit here is the clip of me typing on this keyboard, and we need to rotate it like this by -90 degrees. Let's make it a bit smaller. Let's center the keyboard like this. And as you can see, I think I also 3D tracked. Yeah, I 3D tracked the table so that I can composite the text on the table. And also I rotobrushed my hands so I can put the text behind the hands. So you already know how to do all that, so let's just do that quickly. And we'll continue with sound design rundown. Okay, so again, pre-compose that as this option. Now go to composition settings. It's 30 frames per second, but it's the wrong composition. Yeah, this should be 30 frames per second instead of 29 something. Okay, so firstly, let's track the camera. Let's, as usually, use detailed analysis. Okay, so I have 3D tracked the footage, and I guess I should choose the parts which don't move, not my hands. I'm not an expert in 3D tracking, to be honest, but I think it's quite easy to use anyways. So what the hell happened? Okay, now let's create null in the camera. What does he say? Okay, so let's position the text somehow. It should look cool, maybe like this. What do you think? I think it's cool. Now we need to give it exclusion, our favorite blending mode. And now we need to check if it looks correctly with the camera. To do that, make it 3D, copy the position, copy the rotations, and now we need to reposition it, but that's fine. Once you discover something like this, yeah, that's good. You see it moves perfectly with the footage. It's very cool. So let's copy all the text layers and let's just type in different text. This will make bigger, put it above it. This. And fact we'll just put like this. No, it should be, it's too much negative space. Shouldn't be like that. This I think looks better. Okay, so the finishing touch is rotobrushing the hands, as you know. And also had this turn off effect. Okay, let's do that. Let's deal with the rotobrushing first. This is, to be honest, my least favorite part of After Effects because it always works like shit, but that's good. That's fine. Okay, like this. Why am I doing it not from the first frame? Guys, I always get to switch to the first frame. Wait, I already turned on the full. Okay, I guess I don't need these parts. I only need somewhere here, so it's good enough. Okay, so now choose best here.
as usually. Okay, and now just let's try freezing it. Let's see what happens. The point of interest are these parts, and these are the most contrasting parts, so I think it should be fine. Okay, it looks funny, just the hands in the air. Okay, let's duplicate, let's brush here. Unfortunately, we have a problem here, so I will have to unfreeze it. I have to fix it, and I think it's fine now. So let's freeze it again. Let's just monitor this area. Now it should be fine. Okay, also I want to shift H negatively by 30% and just make the text appear to the speech. Okay, so now create a fastbox blur here, animate this, press U, also animate opacity, now press U, make it 0. So make all 2 other layers do the same. So they, you know, they like dissolve, you know, but it should happen a bit earlier. And it can start also earlier. Yeah, now it's great. Okay, now the very last effect. Pre-compose everything, make it maybe extended, you know, extended by, I don't know, a couple of frames. So we have time to execute the transition. The track null should stay until the end. This should stay until the end. Give this text same effect. And now we can pre-compose it like this. And here comes the interesting part, you know, this TV turn-off effect. Works really cool, especially if you use a fitting sound effect with it. So it's really super simple. So what you need to do first is you need to like create a scale keyframe, but press this chain, constrain proportions. You go 1, 2, 3, 4 frames. You just create a keyframe, and this Y scale should be 0.1. And of course, we want the background to be black. So it should be this small, you know, just a line. And now make this 0.1. Now ease it, give it motion blur. We should remove Jobs. Don't want to see him while the effect is happening. So I think it happens a bit too quickly. So yeah, this way it looks good. Okay, maybe here we need 0.2, so the stripe is a bit fatter. And here we also need 0.2. And here we should add deep glow, but we should add it as an adjustment layer, I think. Move it below the vignette, give it exposure 2, and just animate the opacity of this deep glow. You see? Now it looks just as I intended. See in full resolution. Super cool. And that's it. I think now I will just check if everything is correct, and I'll just render out this video we just created, and we'll make a sound design rundown just like I promised. So now let's say a couple of words about sound design and voiceover quality. So the first thing that you can do if you have a noisy input like I do here, because the original audio has a lot of hiss, you know, the background noise. So the best thing that you can do in this case, you should just limit the output range. You go to export, you export it in, let's say, MP3. Let's call it hissy audio, like this. And let's just press export. Here's my hissy audio. Now I should just go to this website, podcast.adobe.com, and I should choose this enhanced speech, right? So now I drop my speech here. We should wait like a couple of minutes while it thinks. And when we are finished, we have this. You see audio, but it's enhanced now. And we should just paste it back to Adobe, to Premiere Pro here. We just can, for example, unlink this. Sorry, not enable, just unlink, like this. We can delete the old files, the raw cuts, but I usually leave them just in case. And we just paste it here. And it instantly sounds much better. So it sounds better, but now, because of the enhancement, it has lost a bit of, you know, clarity and crispness. So to return that, what we need to do is we need to go to our sequence 01 and check what effects I applied to the audio. So I just applied 4 effects. The first one is single band compressor with this preset, voice thickener, then graphic equalizer. I usually do it to remove the first 2 bands to the minimal level. So the reason I do that is because this like below 31 Hertz and 63 Hertz, they don't give any information. Like they don't carry any information to the sound. They just create, you know, this muddy booming noise in the background, which we doesn't need. So just put it to minimal. Then I apply stereo expander. Usually I use wide field or wider field preset. And the last thing is our secret sauce, which is bright hype. This enhances the high frequencies very much, and it lowers the mid frequencies a bit, so that the voice is more punchy, And we can do this here, which can just press copy track effects, and our audio track is A4, so we check which one is A4. Here's A4, and we just press paste track effects, and now it sounds much better. So also what we can do here is we can just grab our master settings, copy track effects, and just paste them on this mix channel. By the way, if you don't know how to access this window, audio track mixer, and just choose the required sequence. So right now I'm working in the recreation sequence, so I choose this, and the initial view will be like this. And to access effects, you just need to press this small arrow. And basically why I apply any effects to master, firstly because I use a compressor with light mastering preset, and secondly I use hard limiter, and it limits the maximum output to minus 0.7 decibel. So the sound doesn't clip, it doesn't go above 0.7. So it stays in the green zone, doesn't distort. That's the reason. Now with that being said, I think that actually the best way to showcase the sound effect rundown for you will be just to play the video on one side and just to show the sound effect's name as a pop-ups on the other side. So check it out.
When you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is. Live your life inside the world. Try not to bash into the walls too much. Try to have a nice family life. Have fun. Save a little money. That's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact.
Thank you so much for watching this video until the end. If you liked it, I suggest you also watch a different one that I made on how to make a Magnus Media style 3D animation. Take care.